Let me be direct with you from the outset, because what is happening in Tehran right now requires directness. What we are witnessing is not a diplomatic initiative. It is not a trade agreement. It is not even a strategic partnership in the conventional sense that term has been used for the past 50 years. What we are witnessing is the formalization of a comprehensive security and economic integration framework between Iran and China that will fundamentally alter the balance of power in the Middle East, and Washington cannot stop it. I am looking at documents that have been leaked to multiple Middle Eastern news outlets over the past 96 hours. What they describe is not ambiguous. What they describe is a 25-year comprehensive strategic partnership agreement that includes joint military exercises, intelligence sharing, technology transfer, guaranteed oil purchases, infrastructure investment exceeding $400 billion, and most significantly, a mutual defense commitment that obligates China to provide military support if Iran is attacked by a foreign power. And according to multiple sources, including Iranian state media and Chinese foreign ministry statements, the agreement will be signed within the next 14 days. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what this agreement includes, why it represents an irreversible shift in regional power dynamics, and why the United States has no effective tools to prevent it. This is not speculation. This is happening right now. This is documented. Subscribe now if you have not already, because what we are about to discuss is being analyzed in emergency sessions at the State Department, the Pentagon, and the National Security Council, and you will not get this level of detail from mainstream media coverage. Let's start with the context, because understanding why this is happening requires understanding what led to this moment. The United States withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal, in 2018. Since then, the United States has imposed what it calls maximum pressure sanctions on Iran. These sanctions target Iranian oil exports, banking, shipping, technology imports, and virtually every sector of the Iranian economy. The goal was to force Iran back to negotiations and extract more favorable terms. The result was the opposite. Iran increased its uranium enrichment. It expanded its ballistic missile program. It strengthened ties with regional allies including Hezbollah, Syria, and Houthi forces in Yemen. And most importantly, it accelerated its economic and security integration with China. What the United States intended as leverage became the catalyst for exactly the outcome Washington wanted to prevent: Iran moving decisively into China's sphere of influence. According to analysis by the International Crisis Group and confirmed by statements from Chinese foreign policy officials, China views Iran as a critical component of its Belt and Road Initiative, a strategic land bridge connecting China to Europe and Africa, and a guaranteed source of energy that cannot be interdicted by the U.S. Navy. For China, Iran is not a rogue state. Iran is a strategic necessity, and China is willing to invest the resources required to secure that relationship. Subscribe if you are watching this and realizing this analysis is not coming from CNN, MSNBC, or Fox News. Now let's talk about what is actually in this agreement. Announcement number one, the economic component and guaranteed oil purchases. And this one matters more than anything else because it removes the primary leverage the United States has used against Iran for 40 years. According to the leaked documents and confirmed by reporting from the Financial Times and Bloomberg, China has committed to purchasing a minimum of 1 million barrels of Iranian oil per day for the next 25 years at a guaranteed price floor adjusted for inflation. That is 365 million barrels per year. At current prices, that represents approximately $30 billion per year in guaranteed revenue for Iran. Over 25 years, that is $750 billion. But the structure is more significant than the total amount. The purchases are not denominated in US dollars. They are denominated in Chinese yuan and settled through Chinese banks, bypassing the USAL-controlled SWIFT financial messaging system entirely. This means U.S. sanctions on Iranian oil exports become irrelevant. American secondary sanctions, which threaten to penalize any entity that purchases Iranian oil, no longer apply because the transactions occur entirely outside the dollar-based financial system. Think carefully about what this means. The primary tool the United States has used to pressure Iran since 1979 is economic isolation. Sanctions work by denying Iran access to global markets, global financial systems, and hard currency. If China provides guaranteed oil purchases outside the dollar system, that tool is neutralized. Iran gains stable revenue. China gains guaranteed energy. And the United States loses leverage. According to analysis by energy researchers at Columbia University and confirmed by statements from former U.S. Treasury officials, the economic impact on U.S. sanctions policy is profound. If other nations follow China's model and begin trading with sanctioned states using alternative currencies and financial systems, the effectiveness of U.S. sanctions as a foreign policy tool declines dramatically. This is not just about Iran. This is about the erosion of dollar hegemony and the weakening of the primary non-military tool the United States uses to influence global behavior. Received. That is announcement number one. Announcement number two, the Military and Intelligence Cooperation Framework. This is the part that Pentagon strategists are treating as a strategic threat to U.S. military positioning in the Middle East. According to the leaked documents and corroborated by statements from Chinese Defense Ministry officials, the agreement includes provisions for joint military exercises, intelligence sharing on regional security threats, technology transfer in areas including missile defense and electronic warfare, and a mutual defense commitment that obligates China to provide military support, though not necessarily direct combat forces, if Iran faces external military aggression. The mutual defense language is carefully calibrated. It does not commit China to declare war on behalf of Iran. It does not require Chinese forces to deploy to Iranian territory. What it does is create a framework where China provides intelligence support, advanced weapon systems, and potentially naval presence in the Persian Gulf if Iran is attacked. The ambiguity is intentional. The message is clear. Any military action against Iran will have to account for potential Chinese response. According to analysis by the Center for Strategic and International Studies and statements from former U.S. Indo-Pacific Command officials, the mutual defense commitment fundamentally changes the calculus for any Israeli or American military strike against Iranian nuclear facilities or military infrastructure. Previously, the calculation was strike Iran, accept Iranian retaliation, manage regional fallout, restore deterrence. Now the calculation is strike Iran, face Iranian retaliation, potentially face Chinese intelligence support for Iranian operations, potentially face Chinese naval presence complicating U.S. freedom of navigation, and risk escalation into a broader confrontation involving a near-peer adversary. The technology transfer provisions are equally significant. China has agreed to provide Iran with advanced radar systems, air defense technologies, satellite imagery, and potentially fifth-generation fighter aircraft. These systems are not equivalent to U.S. capabilities, but they are sufficient to significantly complicate Israeli and American strike planning. An Iranian air defense network integrated with Chinese technology and Chinese real-time satellite intelligence is exponentially more capable than the current Iranian system operating independently. Stay with me, because this is where the geopolitical chess game becomes clear. China is not doing this out of ideological solidarity with Iran. China is doing this because Iran is geographically positioned to threaten the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of global oil supply transits. If China secures Iran as a strategic partner, China gains influence over that choke point. If the United States or its allies ever attempt to blockade Chinese energy imports during a Taiwan crisis or other confrontation, Iran provides China with the ability to retaliate by threatening Middle Eastern oil flows that the United States and Europe depend on. This is strategic leverage. This is deterrence through proxy. And it is entirely rational from China's perspective. Announcement number 3, the infrastructure and technology investment. This is the part that reveals the long-term nature of this relationship and why it is effectively irreversible once implemented. According to the leaked documents and confirmed by reporting from Reuters and South China Morning Post, China has committed to investing over $400 billion in Iranian infrastructure over the next 25 years. This includes ports, railways, highways, telecommunications networks, energy infrastructure, and industrial development. The projects will be financed by Chinese state banks, constructed by Chinese companies using Chinese labor for specialized tasks and Iranian labor for general construction, and operated under joint management frameworks. The most strategically significant projects are the port developments. China will upgrade and expand the Iranian port of Chabahar on the Arabian seacoast, creating a deep-water facility capable of handling the largest container ships and naval vessels. This port provides China with direct access to the Indian Ocean, bypassing the Strait of Malacca, which is currently the only maritime route connecting the Pacific Ocean to the Middle East and Europe. If the United States ever attempts to blockade Chinese trade through Malacca, Chabahar provides an alternative route through Central Asia and Iran. According to analysis by maritime security researchers and confirmed by statements from Indian strategic analysts, the Chabahar development fundamentally changes Indian Ocean geopolitics. India has been developing Chabahar as part of its own connectivity strategy to Afghanistan and Central Asia. China's investment dwarfs Indian investment and effectively places the port under Chinese influence. India loses strategic positioning, China gains it. And the United States loses a potential partner in containing Chinese expansion. The telecommunications infrastructure is equally significant. China will deploy 5G networks across Iran using Huawei technology. This creates a Chinese-controlled communications backbone that is resistant to Western cyber operations and surveillance. It also creates dependency. Once Iranian government, military, and commercial systems are operating on Chinese technology, replacing that technology becomes prohibitively expensive. The relationship locks in. Think carefully about what this represents. When a nation invests $400 billion in another nation's infrastructure, that is not charity. That is strategic capture. That is the creation of dependencies that cannot easily be broken. That is the Belt and Road model applied to a critical Middle Eastern state, and it is succeeding because the United States offered sanctions while China offered investment. Received. That is announcement number 3. Now let's talk about what is really happening behind the headlines because the official US response and the internal reality are very different. The official US position is that the China-Iran agreement is concerning, that the United States will continue to enforce sanctions, and that American alliances remain strong. This is the public message. It is not the full story. The real story is the emergency policy review happening inside the US government about whether any tools remain to disrupt or delay this agreement, and the preliminary conclusion is no, there are no effective tools. Economic sanctions do not work if China provides an alternative market. Military threats are not credible if they risk confrontation with China. Diplomatic pressure is ineffective if Iran has already decided the benefits of the Chinese partnership outweigh the costs of continued isolation from the West. According to analysis by former U.S. diplomats and confirmed by reporting from Politico and Foreign Policy magazine, the Biden administration explored multiple options to counter the agreement. These included offering sanctions relief in exchange for Iranian nuclear concessions, encouraging European allies to present an alternative economic package, and attempting to negotiate with China to limit the scope of the agreement. All of these efforts failed because the fundamental problem is structural. The United States cannot offer Iran what China can offer, which is guaranteed economic partnership without political conditions. The Chinese model is simple. We will buy your oil, invest in your infrastructure, and provide security cooperation. We do not care about your domestic politics. We do not require democratic reforms. We do not demand concessions on your regional alliances. The relationship is transactional, stable, and predictable. The U.S. model is negotiate constraints on your nuclear program, limit your ballistic missile development, reduce support for regional proxies, and maybe we will lift some sanctions. The Iranian government chose the Chinese model. If you are watching this and thinking the United States can simply sanction China, you are missing the scale problem. China is the second largest economy on Earth, the largest trading partner for over 120 countries, and the holder of over $1 trillion in U.S. Treasury securities. Sanctioning China is not sanctioning Iran. Sanctioning China risks a global economic crisis. The United States does not have that option. This pattern has repeated throughout history, and the lesson is always the same. Let me take you back to the Peloponnesian War, the conflict between Athens and Sparta from 431 to 404 BC. Athens and Sparta fought for 27 years. Both sides exhausted themselves. Tens of thousands died. Entire cities were destroyed. Resources were depleted. And who won? Neither Athens nor Sparta. The real winner was Macedon, the kingdom to the north that remained neutral, preserved its strength, and eventually conquered all of Greece once Athens and Sparta had destroyed each other. The parallel is exact. The United States and Iran have been locked in confrontation for over 40 years. Both sides have paid costs. The United States has spent trillions on Middle East military operations. Iran has endured decades of sanctions. And who is winning? China. China remains neutral in the US-Iran conflict. China trades with both sides. And while the United States exhausts itself trying to contain Iran, China is securing Iran as a strategic partner, gaining access to energy resources, infrastructure positioning, and geopolitical leverage. Athens is the United States. Sparta is Iran. Macedon is China. And the outcome will be the same. The two combatants weaken each other while the neutral power rises. So where does this leave us? Let me give you 3 clear paths because the trajectory is now constrained by decisions that have already been made. Path 1, the agreement is signed. China and Iran implement the economic and security framework over the next 5 years. U.S. influence in the Middle East continues to decline. China becomes the dominant external power in the region. The United States retains military presence but loses economic and diplomatic leverage. This becomes the new normal. Probability 60%. Path 2, the United States attempts to disrupt the agreement through covert operations, cyber attacks, or support for internal Iranian opposition. These efforts fail or produce limited results. The agreement proceeds, but implementation is delayed and contested. U.S.-China relations deteriorate further. The risk of miscalculation and escalation increases. Probability 25%. Path 3, the United States accepts the new reality and pivots to a containment strategy. Instead of trying to prevent the China-Iran partnership, the U.S. focuses on strengthening alliances with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Israel to balance against the China-Iran bloc. The Middle East divides into 2 competing spheres of influence. Tensions remain high, but direct conflict is avoided. Probability 15%. I think we are heading toward path 1. Here is why. The agreement will be signed because both China and Iran have made the strategic decision and the benefits outweigh the risks for both parties. Once signed, implementation will proceed because China has the capital, Iran has the need, and no external actor has the capability to stop it. The United States will protest, maintain sanctions, and attempt to limit the scope of cooperation, but these efforts will be insufficient to reverse the fundamental shift. The fundamental question is this: Can the United States maintain its position as the dominant external power in the Middle East when the second largest economy on Earth has committed to a comprehensive partnership with a key regional state? Or does this represent the beginning of a multipolar Middle East where U.S. influence is balanced by Chinese influence and American freedom of action is constrained by the need to avoid confrontation with a near peer competitor? Here are the questions I want you to take away. First, if economic sanctions are no longer effective when a major power provides an alternative market, what tools remain for the United States to influence adversaries? Second, if China's Belt and Road investments are securing strategic partnerships faster than U.S. military presence can maintain alliances, is the U.S. grand strategy sustainable? Third, if the Middle East becomes a theater of U.S.-China competition, what does that mean for regional stability and the risk of great power conflict? Tell me in the comments what you think this means for U.S. strategy in the Middle East. Tell me if you believe path 1, 2, or 3 is most likely. Tell me if you think the United States should compete with China for influence in Iran or pivot to a containment strategy. We will keep tracking every development in this evolving partnership. That is what this channel does every single day. Subscribe now. Share this analysis with everyone trying to understand the biggest geopolitical shift in the Middle East in decades. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update, because this agreement will be signed within 2 weeks, and the implications will shape the region for the next generation. We will see you in the next analysis.